I I have a laptop that they gave me from work, like back when I started as an intern, and it
Yeah.
got just dosed on the floor one day, so the screen is completely shattered. But if you hook it up to displays, it works. So I just use it at my at-home setup, but the camera's on here. So like most of the Zoom calls I do for the company, I'm like this the whole time.
That is so funny.
Yeah, and I figured for this, that's probably a bad idea. So,
Well, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be on this, man. Um
of course.
I do have some questions that I kind of asked around a couple guys in our program, and then the coaches had a couple questions as well. And then we're gonna do a little rapid fire round at the end before
Awesome.
we sign out. But you just moved. How'd the move go?
Yeah, move one good, man. The new place is bigger, nicer, and our landlord is a former like coworker of Gabby's, so that's pretty nice. And we didn't really leave the area, right? Like we're 5 minutes up the road from where we were, so the commute to work is basically the same. For her, it's even better. So yeah, yeah, all good, man.
Good, good.
Yeah,
Well, we're gonna get right into it. I think last time, actually, now this is you're the first multiple time guest on the podcast. So
yes,
after about a 10 or 11 month long hiatus, we're back. The Coach P's Corner podcast is back.
that's good for everybody.
Yeah. I appreciate you saying that, man. So last time you were on here, we did you kind of gave us a little bit of your background and how you ended up where you are. Um, but first of all, why don't you introduce yourself? We haven't gotten to that part yet. So introduce
Sure,
yourself, what you do, and maybe an abbreviated version because I know you got a heck of a
right.
story that got you to where you are. But go ahead, it's all yours.
Yeah. Uh, Connor Watson. I am the lead hitting trainer at Driveline in Arizona. Um, so yeah, I guess how I got here is, I mean, I played a little bit of baseball. I had to make a pretty hard pivot. I had some knee injuries and ended up actually playing collegiate golf for 4 years. But while I did that, started coaching, climbed through the ranks a little bit, started at the high school level, moved on to some colleges, and obviously that's where you and I met at Simpson in Indianola, Iowa. And it was while I was there that I applied for the hitting internship at Driveline. That would have been 2021, I think. I don't even know what year it is anymore. So I got lucky enough to be offered that opportunity. Went to Washington, was there for 7 months, and they decided to send me down here to Arizona to help open up what was at the time the new spot. And 3 to 4 months into that, and I guess this is where we're getting caught up because I think we had done this before all of this stuff had happened. So
Mm-hmm.
3 to 4 months after being here, uh, the the person that was running the hitting department down here was let go. So I was elevated into that role. Um, and ever since then, I've been kind of running the hitting department down here. We've transitioned into a new facility. We've added way more staff, more space. We're actually, as of 2 days ago, we have now acquired another part of the building that we're operating in. So we now have two spaces. So we're
Wow.
about to build that out. How that's going to look, we still don't really know. But man, it's just been a lot of growth from a company standpoint, a personal standpoint, and yeah, it's been a crazy almost 2 years since being down here. So
Yeah, that's
yeah,
amazing. And you've got to see so much, like you said, so much growth, right? It started as well opening a second facility, but now that second facility is becoming its own thing too, right?
yeah, and I think one thing that I've known about Driveline since 2010 probably. So like it's the company itself, even though I've only worked here for a little over 2 years, is like not foreign to me. But the one thing that I've always been a little jealous of is the people who've not necessarily been there since day one, but gotten to see the evolution of the company. Because, like, I'm super lucky. When I came in as a hitting intern, it was like the best time to possibly be a hitting intern in Driveline
Mm-hmm.
history, right? Like my boss, it was like his number one job to make sure that we were going to turn into world class coaches. And he didn't like he had a ton on his plate, but that was like his main goal. So not only did I have the opportunity to coach, I was like being coached, and it was
Yeah.
great. Since then, things have changed a little bit. Like we're growing like a weed, and it's just like you don't have time to really do that anymore as an intern. You kind of just like have to learn on the fly.
Yeah.
You still get coached, but it's a
Right.
little different. But anyway, like I didn't get to see the bare bones drive line build into what the Washington facility is now. And I'd always
Mm-hmm.
been a little bit jealous of that. And now I don't really have to anymore because like
Yeah.
we come down here and we're renting a space from a different company. It's one cage. It's a tiny weight room right now. We've evolved a little bit into a bigger
Yeah.
building, but for like 3 or 4 months, the walls are white. I have windscreens that I bought from Home Depot to use as a batter's eye. Like it was rough there for a little bit, but rough relative to like what I was used to in
Right.
Washington. So it's been really really cool to like help build something and also see what Driveline is like from a we got to get this thing going standpoint, not from
Mm-hmm.
a okay we're established already standpoint.
Yeah. Yeah. No. So, um, cool to be a part of, I'm sure. Why don't you explain a little bit of, obviously you work with, professional hitters and that, but what else do you do in your position as far as like maybe managing people or
Yeah,
things like that?
yeah. So that's what's evolved the most. Like when I was first down here, it was literally just me for like 6 or 7 months, I would say.
Wow.
So like I didn't have to set a schedule or manage people. It was just like, okay, the hitting floor runs from this time to this time. I gotta be there, right?
Yeah.
Um, but since then, things have changed so much. I now directly manage three people. I have one full time hitting trainer and then two interns. So my job specifically right now, like with the season that we're in, like the college guys have all gone back, right? Like you guys are, I don't know if you've started practice or workouts or whatever, but it's pretty fresh.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so all those college guys have left. Um, Pro guys are still in season. Some of the indie ball guys are starting to wrap up and show back up, but um, right now, what's mainly on my plate is meeting with those three guys at least once a week. And what do you need from me? What tool in your toolbox needs the most polishing, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what can we go over? Do you need to improve as a technician? Do you need to improve systematically? How do we make driveline hitting an unstoppable machine? And how do I help you become the best version of you? So um, right now, it's a little different, right? Because I took this job and any baseball job because I want to coach hitters.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and while I still do plenty of that, that's as of right now, that's shifted a little bit on the back burner until the pro off season starts, and I'm coaching coaches. Um, I also play a little bit of a role in like how the facility runs. We have a facility coordinator, and he's like one of my best friends. So we have a lot of conversations about like the trajectory of what Driveline Arizona looks like, what the hitting floor needs as we expand into this new facility, how things are
Mm-hmm.
going to change. So yeah, it's kind of trial by fire of learning how to be a manager of people, have my hand in some decision making processes that I've never really had before. Like I've had input in those decisions, but it's like the
Sure.
input is very valued now, and that's something I'm still kind of getting used to.
Yeah.
I want to make sure I say the right things, both for the hitting department, my people, and the company as a whole.
Yeah, yeah, that's a little bit of a different side of things to be on. So I hear you there.
one Hundred
So I
percent.
guess I don't know. Be careful how I word this. I guess like where it's not really that dangerous of a question actually, but where do you see yourself in 5 years, or what does your role within Driveline, or what maybe you're going to move on somewhere else? What do you think
Sure.
the next step for you is?
Yeah, I get why you feel that way about that question, and
Yeah.
I feel no uh, type of way about answering it. when I got hired as an intern, one of my phone calls was with Max Gordon, who's now the minor league hitting coordinator for the Tigers. And he asked me the same question, right? Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and I knew a little bit about Max at the time, so I felt a little bit more comfortable answering that question with complete honesty instead of like, what answer should I give this guy to make sure I get the job? You know what I'm
Correct.
saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, so I told him, I was like, I don't know, dude. I don't know. I just want to like make decent money coaching hitters. And to be honest with you, man, that hasn't really changed that much. Like
Good.
that's still the goal. I mean, I have another person I have to think about now with
Mm-hmm.
Gabby, right? So like any moves I make from here are purely like quality of life decisions. I love where I am. Uh, if I think we've had this conversation before, if you would
Mm-hmm.
have told 18-year-old me that I'd be coaching hitters in Phoenix, Arizona, at any point in my life, I'd be like, yeah, sign me up, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm good, man. I love Driveline, man, and specifically the hitting department. Like the group of guys that we have, like I love every single one of them. Not just as like a coach, but as a person, right? Like
Yeah.
they're all getting invites to the wedding, like all of them. Like I love those dudes. So um, yeah, man. I don't know if I'll be here even after this off season, but if that changes, it is purely from a quality of life standpoint. Like, could I maybe move closer to home? Would
Mm-hmm.
I improve Gabby's life like exponentially? Um, but I'm only able to say those things because of how at peace I am with the current state of things.
Yeah. Good answer.
Thank you.
That's deep. That's deep, man. No, and uh, obviously you put yourself in a really good position. Some good fortune, but a lot of hard work too, right? And
For sure. A lot of good
that's
fortune.
and that's one thing that we always talk about is making sure that you congratulate yourself every once in a while too,
Yeah.
for everything that you've put into it as well. But unless you have anything else to add on that, we're going to move on to the questions that were submitted by some of my colleagues and athletes. So,
Let's do it.
um, all right. So, question number one. This is from Coach Caduto. He's the associate head baseball coach here, going into his eighth season at Earlham. Um,
Okay.
what is one technology tool you would suggest that you've seen help the most with player development? Like if
Man,
I guess this is coming from the perspective of a Division III
sure.
hitting coach, right? Which we're fortunate to have some resources and some funding and things like that. So from that perspective, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I'd be it would be like negligent for me not to take some like information into account here. Like I know that Earlham is a Midwest school, right? Like you deal with weather. I also know you're in Division III, so you just mentioned that you're thankful enough to have and lucky enough to have some funding where you can get some things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like you got to take all that into account. Um, but honestly, man, I can't. It's hard for me to not say a blast sensor from that point of view. And there's so many reasons that I say that. The bulk of them being it's pretty affordable for
Mm-hmm.
most, right? Um, and it provides the most important feedback, right? Like we know from years of data that the number one separator between hitters at any level is speed, right? And power potential.
Mm-hmm.
If you can hit the ball harder, you're going to play at a higher level, right? And Blast pretty reliably gives us bat speed numbers. It also gives us an insight to a lot of other things, right? Um, down in the dungeon at Simpson, right?
Oh
Like
yeah.
you're sitting there watching guys swing, and I'm like, okay, from a trained eye and from video, I can tell that this guy's really steep uphill. But like, I can say that to a guy, but I could also have a little like a phone and an iPad with numbers on it. And be like, hey
Sure.
man, you are way too steep uphill. Like it says so right here. So let's look at this video and check the data. Right. It's not necessarily confirmation bias, but it's
Mm-hmm.
just like it's reassuring to the hitter, right? Like you're providing feedback that is tangible,
Mm-hmm.
and then just like to continue on that point, anything that you can do to provide players a feedback loop and tighten it as much as you can
Make it
is what
shorter, right?
gets, yeah, right. It
Yeah.
gets results to stick better. So, like, if you step into Driveline, obviously we've got kind of an embarrassment of riches, but like a guy takes a swing and he turns around and checks the TV that has the hit tracks on it. So he's got exit velo, launch angle, point of contact, all that stuff. And then he
Hmm.
can turn around a little further and check his phone and see what his blast metrics are. And immediately he's connecting the feel, right, with
Hmm.
the reel. Yeah. And it's just like associating for a guy who's in a cage what is good, right? Because
Hmm.
for years and like decades, honestly, you get in a cage and you hit a ball, it's like, oh yeah, that's what I want. And then you get out on the field and you're lining out to the shortstop every time. It's like, what the hell, man? I thought I was doing good, but you're
Yeah.
not, right? So like
Yeah.
it's being able to just tighten that feedback loop. And I think probably the most cost effective and easiest to learn piece of technology would
Okay.
be a blast sensor.
Okay. Should have given a trigger warning to the old heads out there that make fun of kids turning around to look at the monitor immediately after a swing.
As a disclaimer, I will tell you that there have been more than one occasion where I have told a hitter in our facility, and I know I'm contradicting what I just said about a feedback loop,
Yeah.
but there have been more than one times where I'm like, I need you to take this round without turning around at all. Like, just focus on like flush contact. But that was
Yeah.
for a guy who needed that, not a guy that
Right.
needed to find it, right?
Right. Yeah. No, that's some good insight from both angles there.
Sure.
I want to expand on that question. So, you said it's cost effective and all that, which is great. What would be, I guess, I don't know, on the higher end, maybe it's a little more expensive. Whether it be like obviously you guys do mocap stuff and
Sure.
all that. I mean, maybe somewhere in between there. I don't know how much
I
that
got you.
costs. I'm not,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. Well, if you were going to go that route, what I would tell you is to get your like sports science department involved. Like if you guys have like a kinesiology department, that way
Hmm.
maybe some of the funding could come from them and not just the baseball program.
Yeah.
Um, but any type of ball flight monitor, um, even if even if you're a school on the West Coast, East Coast, Texas, whatever, that doesn't have to deal with weather as much, it's still super valuable, right? Because there's going to be those times in any good college program where one of your like a group of your brand new freshmen are in their dorm, they all get done with homework, and it's like, yo, I'm trying to play this year, like I let's go hit, right? So you
Hmm.
go to the facility that hopefully you have access to, and you go hit, right? Are you just guessing? Like, are you just in there swinging and guessing at what you're supposed to be doing, or do you have actual feedback as to what the ball flight looks like? Now, being out on a field is obviously the best, right? But that's not the case all the time. Sometimes you got to be
Hmm.
indoors, and sometimes you don't have access to the field. So the best way to do it, honestly, is have some type of ball flight monitor, whether that's Rapsodo. I prefer HitTrax. Obviously, your top of the line is going to be TrackMan,
Yeah.
which is like the separator between those two is TrackMan has batted ball spin, and if you can
Okay.
start to understand some of that stuff, uh, that's a big time game changer. Because HitTrax doesn't no diss to HitTrax whatsoever, but they don't have batted
Yeah.
ball spin yet. So like you'll hook a ball down the line, and everyone in the cage is like, yeah, it's a foul ball, but it reads as a double, and it's like, okay,
Hmm.
right? So
Yeah.
TrackMan offers that. But yeah, I would say the next step above, like the blast sensor or something, would be a ball flight monitor of some sort.
Okay. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's useful, man. I appreciate the answer there. And actually this is a cool time to share this too. We just got approved for an indoor facility that's going to be right off of our
Heck yeah.
outdoor cages at the stadium. So
That's great.
it's gonna be 80 by 104. Obviously
Okay.
that will be there's gonna be a netting system inside, so it'll be a little bit smaller than that as far as what we can actually use. But we're excited to obviously have everything out at our stadium, but then again continue to grow in that space and maybe use some of these tools and uh, yeah, just see how we can keep getting better. So
Yeah, man.
uh,
Having a central location for everything is just so good
yeah,
for players. So good.
Yeah, huge, right? Yep. Um, okay, question number two. This is also from Coach Caduto. And I think we maybe touched on this in the first episode, but if you're training a team or running a set of practices, and this is kind of a broad question, keep this in mind. All right. So if you're
Okay.
running a team, running practices, what would be the main things you'd focus on? Like if it's just another middle of the week practice in the spring, like what are you doing? You know?
Yeah. Disclaimer, I've got heavy personal bias here. Um, it's going to be player development. Uh,
Mhm.
there's a time and a place for bunt Ds and first and thirds, but that time and a place, in my opinion, is like for 5 minutes once a week. And my cat wants to join our podcast here.
There he is.
Say hi,
First
Keith.
time, first ever cat on the podcast.
Yeah, he's a good one. All
That's
right,
great.
get out of here. Yeah, like I'm always going to side towards player development because like I firmly believe this. If your players get better, you win more games. If that means that for a year or two you struggle slightly, right? Like
Mhm.
to win games because you're developing the talent on the team, I think that's a fair trade-off, right?
Sure.
Like
Yeah.
our job as coaches, in my opinion, is to better our people, both on and off the field.
Mhm.
Wins should be a byproduct. Okay. So, do we need to spend time in practice working on how to win baseball games? Absolutely. But there's no reason that you can't tailor a player development based uh, environment towards competition, right? Like,
Sure.
if I'm trying to, if I have a group of seniors, right, who are like some of my starters or whatever, and I've got them in a cage environment, there's no reason I can't have like a barrel competition and make that about winning
Yeah.
and losing, right? While we're still focusing on getting better. Because I can just tailor the environment to whatever I want and then just tell them guys, like, hey, need something above 95 miles an hour between 10 and 30 degrees. Whoever has the most amount of those, like, doesn't have to pick up the baseballs or whatever, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm always going to work on what my players need to get better. Also, hot take on this: sometimes just don't practice and go lift instead.
I don't hate it.
Like I
Yeah.
don't feel like people do that enough, and I hate saying this, man, but like the more access I've gotten to higher level players,
Hmm.
the more I've learned that the coaching at the highest level, it's not trajectory like this. Like it doesn't just keep getting better as you climb the ladder. Like there are some pretty antiquated lines of thinking still prevalent at the highest level of baseball, and it shows
Hmm.
in the players and how they develop and how they feel. And it's sad, man. So I think again, biased, but if you're not developing your players, well, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like,
So, let me take that a step further to like, I guess, you have your drill work, hitting off the machine, other things like just quickly on that part. You don't have to go super deep into that, but some things
yeah,
that you would do there.
yeah, specifically for you guys, and I think this is true at any level, but very much just because I have experience at the Division 3 level, and you can stop me if I'm wrong, but paralysis by analysis is more prevalent at that level than any level because of how smart these kids are, right? Like
Yeah, you're telling
it's
me, man.
yeah, it's incredible, man. Like
Yeah.
I remember our time at Simpson. Like I'm talking through these guys with some stuff, and if I could go back and do anything at Simpson different, I would say less. Like I would
Yeah.
just set up
Yeah.
things differently and say less because just because you can have a conversation with one of these guys doesn't mean that you should. Because then all of a sudden they're so smart that they latch on to a thought and then all of a sudden
Yeah.
they're thinking about it all the time and by thinking about it all the time they're slowing themselves down,
Yeah.
right? So for me, it's I'm going to set up the environment to be the coach. So I don't have to say
Okay.
that much. I just have to go, hey guys, go solve the problem. And if you have issues solving the problem, let's talk. right?
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you some feedback, some ball flight goals, any like I'll always side towards external cues rather than internal because internally thinking is going to slow us down, and we're going to have like a smaller margin of
Yeah.
error.
Yeah.
Whereas like external cues, we're going to keep our speed up, right? We're more likely to achieve success, intention action model, that whole thing.
Yeah.
So I'm big on environment design, so that I not so that I don't have to say as much, but so it puts the players in a problem solving environment. And like you can think back to like how'd you learn math? You learned what 2 plus 2 equals and how to solve
Yeah.
that problem. And then
Yeah.
you just naturally got better at it and you didn't need as much help anymore because you knew how to solve problems. Right. So like
Right.
if you want this stuff to really stick for guys, make them solve the issue.
Yeah. And that's where I think my philosophy it sometimes needs to be like stated out loud to these kids like, hey, just because I'm not telling you something after every single pitch you throw doesn't mean I don't care about you. I don't want you to get better.
100%.
It's like you got to figure out on your own sometimes what you need to do, right? Because when the lights
Dude,
come on, I'm not next to you, you know?
yeah, it's really funny. I have, I don't know if this is like, it's probably a sign of slightly old age or just being around for long enough, but I'm fine for the first time in my career, unless it was going on that I didn't notice, but I'd like to think I have pretty high feel. I've been able to notice these things. For the first time, I have multiple people from all departments, like not making fun of me, but like there's like Coach Wattsisms. Like
Let's go.
they yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like one of them is me saying, I see you working. And I say that in that exact environment that you're talking about.
Uh-huh.
I want the guy to know I'm not I'm paying attention, but I'm
Yeah.
not spoon feeding this to you either. So
That's
like,
good.
hey man, like that rep probably wasn't what you wanted, but I see you working. Like I do. I promise you I see it. So
That's
it's like
good, man.
I will get made fun of for the end of till the end of time for that because I want the guy to know I care because I do, right?
Yeah.
But also I'm not just giving this to you, man. Like you got to figure this out. I'm not giving it to
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. That's good. I love that.
Yeah,
We're both getting old, I guess, but
yeah,
that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
I think so too.
Okay, that was all of that was one whole question. So we're gonna move on to the next one. Let's
Okay,
see. This one is from Coach Wilcher. He just joined us about a month ago. Was a volunteer at Butler University last year. Coached for a couple years at Iowa Western. Uh, his
nice.
question his question is, what are your thoughts on T work? And if you do use T work, what type of progression would you use there?
Yeah, that's a really really good question. Time and a place for it, in my opinion. Um, I'll answer this broadly at first by saying in
Okay.
our sport the ball is moving. I
Mm-hmm.
would like to do more activities while the ball is moving. Now, um, if you have a guy who is like constantly slicing and hooking balls, right? Now, my natural option is every time I flip this guy, I'm flipping in plyos, right? Like that's going to help solve that problem.
Sure.
But one way you could go about it is using the tee and teaching him how to understand how to impart spin onto the ball and be like, yo, you know, when you hit that ball that ends up being a double because you filleted it down the line, like, cool, you're on second base, but is that good? No, it's not,
No.
right?
Yeah.
So I think the tee can be used in many ways beneficially, right? Like understanding how spin works, what swings produce what spin, what swings produce what ball flight, trajectories, launch angles, all that types of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It is also probably the most, uh, no, the least taxing bat speed training of all time, right? Like the ball's not moving, you can literally swing as hard as you can and have
Yeah.
like very low fear from not making contact.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then like if I'm doing, I don't necessarily completely believe in this, but if I'm doing like a complete swing rebuild on a guy, like I know that this current swing will not play in the game. And this dude is like a freshman and has time to get better. Like maybe do some like mechanical changes off the tee
Sure.
just to like lower the environmental stress. But all that being said, I much prefer flips to the tee. The ball's moving in our sport. It should be moving 98% of the time. But then again, like player preference, man. Like Taylor Trammell with the Mariners, like when he was hurt last year and was down here rehabbing, like we started every day with tee because that's what he liked doing. So it's just
Sure.
like if it makes the guys feel good and it's something they're comfortable with and it gets them going for that day, that's fine.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, no, I hear you there. That's good. That's good stuff. His second question is, what cues do you use to teach the proper load with specifically the hands and more broadly the upper half?
Nice. Um, not to beat a dead horse here, but if I can avoid cues by using implements and like external cues, I'm gonna
Mhm.
right. So like um, if I've got a guy who's like really like pushy, like his hands just commit way too early, instead of talking to him about it, well, I'll talk to him a little bit about it, but instead of like sitting down and going over it like in a really granular fashion, uh, maybe I'll cook up like sliders or breaking balls at the bottom of the zone and give him a short bat. Go ahead and push. Like see how much success you're going to have in this environment here, and then we'll talk. Right, like start
Okay.
connecting the dots that way. But that being said, um, I mean, I've used a variety of them. Like walk away from your hands. Imagine there's like a rubber band between your hands and your front foot, and you want to like stretch it out, and obviously not too much.
Hmm.
Um, like talking scap load too about like being feeling like you're like pulling this back. Um, the upper body coil is a tough one too because like you can get too shut off or not enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, that's why like environments are so important. So like for instance, this is probably the best drill answer I can give here. Um, Go into like a flips environment and move the tosser to the opposite side of the field. So like if I'm right-handed, right, the toss is going to be coming from like where the second baseman would be,
Yep.
and like tell them to catch it as deep as they can and go up the middle. Because if they're not loaded properly here, right, they can't get it deep and stay behind it and hit something flush through the middle. They'll probably like either pull off or like just fist everything the other way,
Right.
right? So
Yeah.
like again, there's a variety of like verbal cues I could give this guy, or I could just put him in this environment structured for 2 to 4 weeks and watch the change
Right.
take place over time. I didn't even have to really say anything
Yeah,
because
and
the guy
that
figured it out himself.
yeah, and that goes back to the last answer that you gave us was trying to say less, right? And making structuring your practice so that you can coach that way that I agree with you that I think most people should do it that way. So setting up the environment in order to make that more practical, right? Or make it more useful. So that's really good. And that's where I feel like maybe I've fallen short a little bit too, is like the environment aspect. And um, it's different on the pitching side, right? Like
Way different, man.
you only get so many bullets, and you want to use them wisely, and you want to
Yeah.
work on stuff. But like creating more competition, I think on that side of things is something that I could get a little bit better at there.
Yeah,
But
maybe, man. But like you said, it is harder. Like this is going to be the only time you'll hear me say it, being a pitching coach is harder than being a hitting coach. But environmental design on the pitching side, it truly is hard, right? Because like you said, you have so many bullets you can use. Uh,
Mhm.
Outside of like the V flex, I don't think I've seen too many uh, like literal objects other than like a dummy, right? That you can
Mhm.
like place in areas to provide a constraint
Sure.
without like severely inhibiting the pitcher's mechanics and speed. So
Mhm.
like I hear you, man. Environmental design from the pitching side of things is certainly harder than it is from the hitting side.
That's part of the fun though, is
Yeah,
trying to figure
got to
out
get
ways
creative.
to get better, right? Yeah.
It's how you become a better coach, in my opinion.
Yeah.
How
I
how how good are you working with less?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, good question to ask yourself if you're a coach out there.
no doubt.
Um, and this one comes from Max Freeze. He is our only fifth year. He's an outfielder for us. He has 100,000 followers on TikTok as well. So,
What?
yeah, he is like big time.
Good
Um,
for that guy.
so yeah. His question is, what do guys who are more undersized, that's in quotes there, do better than guys who have more physical strength to hit for power and can slug it a little bit? So guys like Mookie Betts, who, what is he, 5'10", 180 pounds,
Yeah.
whatever. Uh, but he's leading the league in slugging. What sets him apart in his swing, approach, and training to hit for that kind of power?
Yeah. Well, Mookie is an outlier, right? Like, he's probably the cleanest mover that has ever come through our motion capture lab. Um, he gets the most out of what he has, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, on top of that, he is probably one of like, I just say top 25 to be safe, but it's really probably top 10, like ball strikers in baseball. So like even in those years between when he won the MVP in Boston and this year, like he's still so skilled at the art of striking a baseball that he was able to get away with like the fact that he wasn't lifting in season anymore, or the fact that he was thinking mechanically and not moving fast and being an athlete anymore. So like his he said it in an interview the other day that his past couple seasons were trash. Like, okay, they're obviously not trash, Mookie. Like those were still a lot of people would kill for those years. But he's
Yeah.
right, man. Like when you're thinking in the wrong terms and not owning your own personal skill set, it's hard. Uh, but for a guy like that, man, like I would be wrong if I didn't first say he is an outlier. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Additionally, though, being an outlier means it's easier to pick out what you need to work on. Um, and he knew that he needed to get some speed back. He knew that he needed to stop like his front side just diving over the dish, so he had more room to move. But again, I think the whole question goes back to understanding who you are and what your skill set is. Like I this is going to sound horrible, but I've been saying for a couple of years that my least favorite hitter on earth is David Fletcher, but I also respect him so much because that guy made it to the big leagues. Like
Yeah.
that guy had no business being a major league baseball
Yep.
player, but he played elite level defense and makes contact with far too many pitches. Like
Yeah.
way too many pitches.
You can't strike him out on the show. You
No,
can't.
and you can't strike him out in real life either. So, but and the sad part about that is like obviously you haven't seen much of him this year because like injuries and like they've got
Mhm.
better players, right? Like if you told me I had Zach Neto and David Fletcher, I don't care if Zach Neto is his first day off of campus in Campbell, I'm starting that guy instead.
Yeah.
Okay, that's just
Yeah.
my personal opinion. No disrespect to David Fletcher, but back to the question, right?
Mhm.
David knew what he did best. Like he can make contact with anything. So if he feels that he can, he's swinging, right?
Right.
Now, I am not a proponent of that strategy. If you are a David Fletcher type, you should absolutely be looking for pitches that you square up, not pitches
Hmm.
that you can make contact with. And
Yep.
that is like the last part of the answer to the question. Your approach needs to be centered around your strengths, not what the pitcher does.
Right.
So that and you need to be so stubborn about it. So like to the point where like if you are sitting breaking ball and you take a heater right down the middle, it's not, oh man, no. You are
Hmm.
on your plan and you are going to make him beat you on your plan. So I think that's what a guy like Mookie and undersized guys who have success do best is like they have elite bat to ball skills and then they have an elite approach structured around their strengths so that they do get the most out of their results.
Yeah. That's a lot of, there's a lot of good advice for And not just on the hitting side too, but guys who are still developing in baseball, just the self-awareness factor to understand what you do well, but also what your limitations are. And like there's a time to train kind of outside of that comfort zone or whatever you want to call it. But
Yeah.
when it's time to compete, you gotta know exactly who you are, and not try to do more, and also not do too little, right? So,
Yeah. The, the,
um,
the, the two biggest things that I've learned from this past offseason being around more pros than I've ever been around is, well, one, they walk through the door and you look at them. It's like, oh, that's a professional baseball player. Like,
yeah,
there's no doubt in my mind. Uh, and then two, like exactly what you just said. There's a moment I'll never forget from this offseason is Nick Pavetta is throwing a bullpen in the cage next to us. And I'm sitting down with Mark Canna waiting for the group ahead of him to get done. And Pavetta throws like I don't know, it's like a two seam or something that rides into a right handed hitter. And Mark goes, I'm on first. Like it's just offhanded comment right next to me. And I'm like, this guy led the big leagues in hit by pitches the past 2 years. Of course he's on first base.
that's funny.
He just owns what he does.
I love that, man. So I guess if you're comfortable too, like just talking about some of the guys that you've worked with, and maybe what that experience is like.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, man. Like,
yeah.
I mean, I think Driveline as a whole has kind of stopped pulling our punches a little bit on talking about who we've worked with.
Mhm.
So I'm okay with it. But yeah, man, like the coolest thing about it is just like you get a better understanding of how these guys operate. Um, and you know me, uh, the thing that obviously is the coolest part to me is the people that they are. Um, they're really not that different, man. They're just so meticulous. Like they're detail oriented, and this is their livelihood, and they treat it like it,
Right,
right? Like this
right.
is how, yeah, they make a ton of money, but they don't look at it that way. It's like this is how I provide for my family, right? Like
Yeah,
we had a couple guys in here who like are from Puerto Rico or the DR, and it's like that whole you have to hit your way off the island thing is real. Like that
yeah,
is real. And it's really cool because like I would there was one time we had a hitter in here, not a pro guy. He had graduated college, didn't get like an indie ball contract, was hanging on last like his final thread, just barely hanging on. And I
mhm,
noticed he started getting sad and mopey and feeling bad for himself about like, oh man, this isn't gonna work out. So I was literally like, you are hitting at noon for the next week because at 11 o'clock, I know the guys that are hitting in that group, and you better be here to watch how they work. And you tell me if
yeah,
you're working the same, right? It's not about how hard they work, it's about how smart and detailed and how focused they work. Uh, also, uh, one unexpected benefit, um, speaking for myself, right? Like Mark Canna and Kyle Isbell, um, watching them play the game of baseball has been such a joy for me this year. It's not even about hitting to me. Like I watched Mark back up a throw at third base like a couple weeks ago, and I was like 60% of the league wouldn't even be there,
yeah.
but he was there to bat, and he threw a guy out at home, and I was just like, he is a professional. Watching Kyle Isbell play center field, not even something we worked on, right? All we
Yeah,
did was, well, now like he worked with our strength staff. So like running and stuff, like
yeah,
it
yeah,
helped a little, but not for me. Watching him play center field is so much fun. Watching him run the bases is so much fun because like I now know these people as human beings.
hmm.
And then I watch them. It's like watching, I don't know, man. Like I didn't watch my mom go to work, but I get to
Yeah,
like
no,
watch these people go to work and do their job. And it's just like these guys are not necessarily like perfectionists of their craft, but like they're on the search for mastery at all times. And it's
yeah,
it's so fun to watch. They're just trying to be the best always. And like it's no secret, dude. Like Otani would like openly ask, "Oh, what's the record?" And then just stop at nothing
and then
to go
just beat it.
beat the record.
Yeah,
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he's still mad about the fact that Joe Adele currently has our exit velo record in the gym.
Do you know
Like,
what that number is off the top of your head?
yeah, 118.6.
That's pretty good.
Now, now let me like Acuna hit a ball 121 last night. I would that's as good as it gets. Like
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
that is absurd. But like indoors ball flight tracking technology, like there's obviously some noise involved. I feel fairly confident that Shohei's probably hit a ball harder than that in our gym, but like doesn't matter because on the
Yeah.
board it says Joe Adele is number one, and I'm pretty sure forever Shohei will be upset about that.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, man, you said it right. The type of people they are. It's not like, I don't know, just the way they go about their business. I guess it's more than just a baseball thing, is what you said. And um, that's, at different levels, you have different kind of approaches, right? Like it,
Mm-hmm.
and the hope is that, we're at the Division 3 level specifically is, we're here to get a degree and a really top-notch education. Um, but at the end of the day, like why can't we bring that to the baseball side of things too? Like
Yeah,
why can't the guys we bring in outside of their schedule and their time do more baseball related stuff than, you know, what we provide for them? And that's the thing. I guess, like, for me, it was always like I wanted to see if I could play past college. Like I didn't care that I was
yeah,
at a Division 3 school. It was like, how can I, get there? How can I get close to being there? Whatever it might be. But um, I think that needs to be, because there are times, and now I'm going to kind of get on my soapbox here, so hang with me for a minute. But there were a lot of times throughout my college career where I was like, nah, I'm not going to be able to play pro baseball. Like, it's just not going to happen. And even that, like, even if it was just for like a week or two that I thought about that, it, how much did that take away from me potentially getting there?
yeah,
Because after I graduated, I went to 3 different indie league tryouts and it didn't end up working out. But like, what if I had never doubted that I could do it? And that's where the only thing that I regret, which I don't know if I wouldn't say it's like myself to blame there, but for the people that are listening to this, especially younger ball players, why what's it worth, like, doubting yourself? What does that do for you? And even if people think you're silly or think you're like, he's never going to make it, like, who cares? You can still
yeah,
tell yourself, like. And so that's one thing I just wanted to, that's mostly for people who maybe are pretty good at baseball but maybe don't think they can play pro ball or don't think they can get there. um there's no reason to ever have that, like, I'm not going to make it kind of mentality. But that also taught me a lot too, right? And so going forward, that's something that I can encourage everybody that we bring in to say, like, hey man, why not try to play past college? Like, so
100%, man. Like,
yeah.
like two things. One, that's why you and I are coaching, right? Like,
Yeah.
somewhere along the way, we learned a lesson that we would have liked to do things a little bit differently, and so now
Mm-hmm.
it's our responsibility to impart that wisdom on our younger people. Uh, and then two, shout out to my man Ernie Girassi. He's currently playing for the Long Island Ducks. I think that's their
Oh
name.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. If you came down here and you watched our pro off season and who was in the cage, and you looked at that guy, it's like, oh, that's not a professional baseball player at all,
Mm-hmm.
but he is. Like that guy, and he just oozes it, dude. Like he'll walk around. He walked up to a scout from the Boston Red Sox at Arizona State during some live ABs this past offseason and said to his face, if you need someone to smack it around like Pete Rose, I'm your guy. it,
Who
dude,
does that?
he does like he doesn't look the part at all, and the guy just can't miss a barrel. Like he was in, I can't remember what league he started out in. And then he got an invite to the USPBL up in, or no, the draft league. He got an invite to
Oh,
the
okay.
draft league and just started banging. And then all of a sudden, the Long Island Ducks were like, "We need to get this guy,"
Yeah.
and they got him on a week-long contract, and it's been a month. He's still there. Like,
How about that?
who cares, man? If you don't look the part, if you don't actually like put up the numbers that other people put up, but belief is immeasurable.
Yeah.
and it can get you farther than honestly your talent can.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate you adding on that too. Uh didn't really have that in the notes here, but I think it's important for kids who, even if they want to play pro ball even this much, like,
Yep.
why not chase it, man? Um, okay, so I have we got a rapid fire round to
Okay.
finish off the show here.
Okay.
This has been great, by the way. I this is something that I was a little disappointed in myself for not being more consistent with it, but it's something
Hard,
that
man.
I started, and I realize how much it helps me now too. So people like you and whoever else may have on this podcast, it does a lot for me as well. But let's move on to the rapid fire question. Okay.
All right. So,
And this is we're going to be flexible with this. I don't really care how quickly you answer these.
okay.
um,
I'll do my best to participate accordingly.
most recent book you read?
Ooh, Outliers. Malcolm Gladwell, I think, is the author. There's some good nuggets in there, dude. It's like
Yeah,
we spend a lot of time thinking very, very deeply about things when really, if we just like paid a little bit more attention and like, oh, that's why. Like, it just
yeah.
quick nugget. This is the one thing that pops into my head every freaking time. It was like the Canadian national hockey team or whatever. They're like all born in like January, February, and March of whatever year qualifies them to be on like the 18U team
Oh,
because they're the oldest version of that age group. They're
yeah,
developed better than it. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's like
yeah.
the latest birthday is like August 2nd. And it's like you
Wow,
look at the roster and go, oh, well, no, like, of course.
that makes
Why
sense.
didn't I think about that?
Yeah,
So, like, I don't want to squash the literal conversation, but maybe if your kid was born in December, sorry,
yeah.
like, he's going to need to work a little harder.
That's me.
Yeah.
All right, that's good. Okay, question number two. Favorite video game of all time. Now this could be.
NCAA football, but it doesn't matter what
It
year.
doesn't matter what year.
The amount of hours I logged on that. I maybe my proudest achievement of my life. I finished a dynasty. You
Oh
can get to
wow,
the end of one of those.
isn't that like 30 seasons?
No, no, it is more than double that, and I got there.
Okay.
Knee surgeries will do a lot to a man.
All right. Um, I would say probably the backyard football computer game version. That's
Uh,
just so fun. It's
can I
just
tell
so
you
fun.
a quick fun story?
Yeah.
Backyard baseball was reintroduced into my life this year.
No kidding.
Uh, there is an online league, like real, like there's
Really?
a Twitch channel and everything. There is a member of our staff, Jared Skolnicki, who is currently in Game 3 of the World Series, which I think is tonight.
Oh my goodness. I'm gonna have to
Yeah,
tune in.
it's amazing. If it's tonight and he drops the link in one of our channels, I'll send it to you.
So is it like the computer game version or is it
Yes.
and so they're doing that? Okay.
Yep.
I have the PlayStation 2 version, which I think is like 2002 or
Yeah.
2003 maybe. But
So
oh, that's
good.
great. That's crazy. Okay.
I know. It's
Uh,
hilarious.
all right. Yeah. Don't forget to send me the link if you get it.
I
Okay.
got you.
This one is from Amanda. She asks, what is your favorite cartoon?
Oh man. Uh, first of all, hi Amanda. Of all time, I think it has to be SpongeBob.
I knew it.
But currently, Bob's Burgers.
Very good. Yeah. There's a
Really good.
movie. There's a Bob's Burgers movie, I
Yes,
think.
there is. Yes, there
Have you
is.
seen it?
Maybe I've said,
I
dude,
don't know if yeah.
it's our current go to bed show.
Yeah.
So there's a chance I've seen it and don't really remember.
That's when I was at Swick, if I was ever gonna make it back up to Des Moines, if I got there after bedtime, Amanda always had Bob's Burgers on the TV. I was like, oh,
Yeah,
here we go
nice.
again. No, SpongeBob of all time. If I had to go currently, honestly, Rick and Morty is really funny,
Really good show.
really really funny.
Yeah,
So it took me a while to come around for that one, but really really good. Okay,
no
so
doubt.
this kind of related now. Last show you binge watched, not counting Bob's Burgers.
Can I answer with one we're currently binge watching?
Yeah. That's good.
Righteous Gemstones.
Uh,
It's on HBO. It's written and he acts in it by Danny McBride. Shout out Kenny Powers.
oh, nice.
Uh, it it is so chaotic. Like we haven't obviously like finished it yet, so I can't really truly even tell you if it's good or not. But
Yeah,
like it has my attention and it is
good.
outrageous.
Have you watched Ted Lasso?
Okay, yes, but I am very embarrassed to tell you that I have not finished it.
That's
That
fine. That's fine.
has the potential to be my favorite show of all time. Like
Yeah,
I love everything about it.
yeah. I just watched it I would say 2 or 3 weeks ago. I finished all 3 seasons in 4 or 5 days. So
I That doesn't shock me one bit.
yeah. All right. Okay, next question. We have favorite musician or band?
Um, uh, okay, when you say musician or band, that makes me think not rap music.
Oh, that counts. Artist.
Okay, I'm gonna give two
Yeah.
answers then. My favorite artist is J.
J.
Cole.
Cole. I knew it.
Yep,
Yeah.
you knew that. Yep. Yeah. But a little recency bias here because it was unfortunately reminded how much this person means to me. R.I.P. Jimmy Buffett. Um,
Oh man.
I listened to him all day yesterday, and it was a tough day. But grew up on him with both my mom and my dad, even though they were divorced. So uh,
Yeah.
yeah, for
That
sure.
I was fortunate enough to take a class, a January term class called Margaritaville at
No
Luther College.
way.
And yeah, I swear to God, man, because he's written some books, so we read those
Yeah.
and um, obviously watched some music videos and concert videos and stuff like that. But on the last day of class, our professor who was retiring after that year, shoot, now I can't remember his name, but he made us some margaritas that it didn't
Nice.
have the tequila in them or anything, but
Sure.
we had the blender going and everything, and man, that's the the fact that I got the chance to take a class like that was
So
so
cool.
much fun. Yeah,
Yeah.
and the things you
There's
can learn.
something I know, man. He
Yeah,
lived such a life.
yeah,
There's something to be said about the fact that the guy that was teaching that class was retiring at the end of the year.
yeah,
There's something so
yeah,
beautiful about that.
yeah. Oh man. Okay. Last question.
Okay.
Favorite college football team?
Oh, come on now. Come on now. You don't have to do that to me.
Week one
The,
was
the
tough for
Nebraska
you.
Cornhuskers, baby. Yeah. No, this is going to be an interesting week too, to say the least.
Yeah, and I will
Yeah.
say, not related to football, but the fact that they did the whole thing with their volleyball program. I mean,
Dude,
outdoor at Memorial. Yeah, like
I
how
was
cool was
talking,
that?
I was trying to, so like, there's a weird Nebraskan representation at Driveline, specifically Kearney, Nebraska, which is very strange.
Odd.
Um, but trying to explain it to people who don't know is really hard, and
Hmm.
it makes me zoom out to like try to help people understand it, and it even got to me a little bit. I was like, okay, an attendance record, so amount of people
Hmm.
for a women's sport was
Hmm.
broken in the middle of America, where you have a bunch of like rednecks, Republicans with guns, and like
I didn't even think about it that way. That's
I didn't
crazy.
either. I didn't either until I felt like I was forced to zoom out, and I was like, "Holy
The
cow,
location
man!"
of it. Yeah,
No one knows where Nebraska is. No one knows that 92,000 people even exist in that state,
dude.
let
That
alone
the
can go to one spot.
people here call that out west. People in
That's so
Indiana call that
strange.
out west, and they think
When
they're
you
in the
said you
Midwest
were
here.
when you said you were in the Eastern time zone, I was like,
It
"What?"
doesn't make sense.
We've got okay. So the full time hitting trainer that we hired, he and his wife are from like Ohio, Pennsylvania area.
Hmm. Hmm.
What do you call that part of the country?
It's got to be like the Great Lakes region.
That's what I go back to.
It's
But
not the Midwest.
they call Ohio the Midwest, and
Yeah,
I'm
no,
like, you guys are crazy. That is
I
not the
just
Midwest.
I can't get on board with that, man. I just
Me
can't.
neither. Me
Uh,
neither. And
Uh,
they call us like the Great Plains or whatever. And it's like, yeah, that's not
fair
wrong.
enough. Fair
Yeah,
enough.
yeah.
It's not out west though, and I
No,
thought
it
this
is not
actually that
out
just
west.
happened. The first time I heard it was like this last week, so good timing. But
Are they aware of the Louisiana Purchase? Do they know that that happened?
I'm sure at some point they were. Oh man, that's all I had uh on my notes there. Been working on my immaculate grid. Not going so well today, but
Dude,
play
I
that.
tried to do that every day, but first of all, I just forget because I got
Too
other stuff
busy.
going on. I am embarrassingly bad at that. I thought I'd be really good at that. I'm really bad.
Yeah. No. Well, I failed a lot at the beginning, which meant I was getting better at it, right? And then
True.
I would spend literally hours scrolling through who played for the freaking Yankees and Nationals. Like
Sure.
I
So
would literally
overtime, yeah.
study that. I would
Yeah.
study that. Like, how am I not good enough at this game? Anyway, that's a different conversation for another
Yeah,
time.
for sure. Yeah. The always you should look at anytime Bodie posts one, you should go look at it. That guy's brain
It's ridiculous.
doesn't
Yeah.
his brain doesn't end. It's just I can't even we could do an entire podcast on that guy.
Yeah. Well, I this is an hour well spent, man.
Same.
Happy to get back on the horse here, and I hope people will listen to this, and because there's a lot of good things from your end on hitting more so that kind of thing, but also mindset and philosophy and belief in yourself, no matter what you're doing. It doesn't even have to be athletics or anything like that. So really appreciate you, man. I know you got a lot going on right now, but um, we're gonna make you the first 3-time guest on the podcast at some point too. All right.
I'd be honored. I'd be honored.
All right,
I'm
man.
glad you're doing this again, man. This is like
Yeah,
and like you said, hopefully people listen. I feel like this is gonna really help a lot of people.
yeah, absolutely, man. Thank you very much. I'll let you know when this is up, and again, can't thank you enough, dude, and really happy for what you're doing down there.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate you.
All right, man. I love you.
Love you.
See ya.